Number one, if all students in low-income countries left school with basic reading skills, 171 million people could be lifted out of poverty. That's an equivalent of 12% drop in global poverty. That's huge. Number two, if every child in low-income countries completed secondary school by 2030, income per capita would increase by 75%, by 2050, and poverty elimination would be brought forward by 10 years. Now, Anne and I were talking about poverty, and we were talking about the question, how do you want to change the world? And so if we again work on having the GPE replenished, if we ensure that young kids are able to get access to early education, we would then bring forward by 10 years the issues of ending global poverty. And then the third point, which for me is astounding, is an individual's earnings increase by about 10% for each additional year of schooling. Rates of return are highest in poor regions such as sub-Saharan Africa, reflecting the scarcity of skilled workers. So you see that with the GPE funding that we had gone through supporting teachers so that they've got increased skill of service delivery, and so that there is increased quality of education provided. These, especially number three, are issues that we are working to take to communities in rural Zimbabwe and in Africa, so that they now have a motivation to send their young kids to school. Because without this information, they'll be like, well, we need more labor in the farm. We need people to be cultivating crops. We need to ensure that our household food security is guaranteed. And so this education thing you're talking about, I never went to school, but I didn't turn out badly with that. So those are conversations that the grandparents and the caregivers then start saying in communities that, well, forget about education. We need food. We don't need education, right? And these are examples of conversations that have been told to me. So I'm not just making this up. This is what I've actually been told in some community settings. The return for each dollar invested in education is more than $5 in additional gross earnings in low-income countries and $2.50 in lower to middle-income countries. Every year of schooling decreases the chance of youths engaging in violent conflict by 20%. Right? And so what a case to build up for national security. Right? The more we promote young kids going into education, the more we reduce the chances of them being involved in conflict. I added this one here, that youth without an education can be 9 times more likely to be recruited by rebel groups and thus influencing the growth of ISIS, ISIL, and Boko Haram. Right? A couple of days ago, in fact, I was just sharing in Iowa, when we were just having a lunch discussion. The thing that I love the most about the Global Partnership for Education is that it's a conversation between countries, right? So it's not a top-down approach. It's not like, it's USAID coming in and saying, we've got $50 million to support this country. These are the conditions that you have to meet for you to get this money. It is a conversation. And the importance for me for a conversation is that it provides a basis for a buy-in. Right? So I don't know if you might be familiar with this group called Boko Haram, which operates out of Nigeria. So Boko Haram, simply translated in English, means no to Western education. No to Western education.
No to Western
education.
Wow. So they've actually thrown the word Western.
Yeah. So now imagine if there was a conversation within them, because I believe that this started in a village somewhere, because they felt that something was being thrust down upon them, and they had to take it. And for them to resist it, they said, we're going to fight. Right? But imagine if there was a process of educating this community to say, this is the importance of education. Right? And this is the importance, particularly now as we live in a global village, this is the importance why we need to interact. Right? So whilst they're going out there fighting, we are also then going out there fighting against them instead of having a conversation, right, about the importance of education. Right? So sometimes in a sense you sit there and you say, okay, what then is the alternative education that they would have preferred? Right? And in my personal view, the Global Partnership for Education is now providing that platform to listen to countries, to listen to villages, to listen to communities, to say, okay, what sort of education do you want to promote in your community, and how can you develop plans How can you develop education sector-specific plans that then promote the kind of education that you want? So, for example, in Zimbabwe, we came up with a 2742 model of education, where we say early childhood development should not be seen outside the spectrum of mainstream education. It should be brought inside. So we want to have 2 years of early childhood development education, and then 7 years of primary education, 4 years of secondary education, and then 2 years of high school before a child goes into adulthood. So this is what we want in Zimbabwe. And so the Global Partnership for Education, they said, we hear what you want, we're going to support you in the gap, in the financing gap that you have, so that you're able to come up with this broad-based plan. Right? And so the plan is now in place. In 2017, we started implementing this plan. But guess what? Zambia, Malawi are actually the knocking on our door to say, hey, this is interesting. We see preschool education, we see early childhood development outside the primary, the basic education framework. We are looking at what you're doing and we want to adopt it. So Malawi right now, my colleagues from Malawi are now beginning to have conversations with their national government to say, hey, look at what Zimbabwe is doing. Right? We still have our kids learning under trees. We still have our kids not being part of the main school system. Why don't we then adopt the model and the plan that Zimbabwe has begun to implement? Right? So guess what it's doing? It's now, promoting that sort of South-South cooperation. So countries within a low income bracket are now starting to talk together about education, right? And so it's not a hand down. So the partnership is not a hand down, is my point. It's now a hand up to say, hey, we see what you're doing. We then want to leverage the resources that we have and that you have so that you have a broad-based plan. My next space is again, youth without an education can be 9 times more likely to be recruited by rebel groups. I will not exhaust that. A lack of opportunity for education for displaced and refugee children can perpetuate cycles of migration. Look at the stuff that's been happening in Aleppo, in Syria. Right? Look at the migration that has been happening in North Africa. So imagine if there was a space for education conversations happening in these countries. Right? I don't know about folks here, but where I come from, the thing that I want for my own 2 kids is a good education. The minute I feel that my country is not providing a good education for my kids, I'm saying, guys, pack up bags, let's move. I'm searching for a better education for my kids. So all the migrants that are moving, 9 times out of 10, whilst there's security risk and there's a security decision, but the next thing is probably education. They want their kids to be educated. So why don't we come together? Why don't we then leverage the GPE so that it supports these countries, so that they develop strong educational plans, strong educational institutions, and then they have, their own citizens staying in their countries and benefiting from that education system. Again, a case to ponder when it comes to national security, right? Now, educated youth and adults are more likely to be healthy, to make healthier choices for their families, and to seek health care when needed. I will not do justice by over-explaining this point. But it then ties into the whole results ideal of ending global poverty. So you cannot end global poverty in isolation of education, right? You've got to bring in components of education, and the GPE is fantastic at doing that. Last point is educated mothers are more likely to have their children vaccinated, and they work to ensure that families are safe. Again, when we talk of the GPE, we're talking of massive investments in making sure that young girls access education and remove that sort of traditional approach of ensuring that it's only boys that access education. But now the GPE advocates actually that 60% of the funding should ensure that young girls have got access to education. A couple of things that we have to do as advocates, as result advocates, and this is my challenge to you as you speak to representatives, senators, congresspeople, is that number one, we must strengthen government leadership to scale up what works. Government leadership and political prioritization are prerequisites to ensure that ECD program succeeds. right? So the minute we start making a case on early childhood development, and my mind is still blown away by the article that I read that was in the Houston Journal? Houston Chronicle, about the education, where the Education Commissioner is really making a case for the state to invest over $800 million in pre-K education. That is fantastic, right? And so I sit there, as I was reading this, I was overjoyed on one side, but also a little bit saddened on the other side. Now, I was overjoyed because this side of the world is making massive investments. And on the other side of the world, in my country, just thinking of spending $800 million on ECD is not going to cut it. It's not going to cut it. But guess what? If we made that conscious decision as Zimbabwe to put that investment, then we know that our little children are going to have a life full of possibilities, right? Because we are busy concerned about the here and now, and we are not so much concerned about the young kids and the future, right? And so this is what really overjoyed me. I said, wow, this education commissioner is looking at, the kids that are going to be 17 by 2030. He's looking at it now, right? Right now, I won't even tell you our priorities in that country. Number 2, we must deliver multi-sector interventions with health as a starting point for reaching the youngest children. Again, education is the key point in doing these things. And I'll mention this in the next slide that I'll run through. I promise I'll be done in 45 minutes. And again, health, has to be centered around education, and I'll show you how one program is doing that. It's no-brainer that young children need nurturing care from the start, and this is where the Note to 3 programs come in terms of early stimulation and nutrition for young kids. The burden and cost of inaction is very high, very, very high. A poor start in life can lead to poor health, nutrition, and inadequate learning, resulting in low adult earnings as well as social tensions. So I sort of packed a lot of things in that one last statement. Right? The burden of inaction is very high. We've spoken about the issue of the young people involved in conflict, spiraling HIV and malaria and TB because of lack of education, right? And so, whilst we've gone ahead as the world, as the global village, to look at issues of, through the Global Fund, which is fantastic, right? Global Fund for Health. We've gone ahead and looked at the health aspect, but we also have sort of negated our responsibility in looking at education as a key component to ending global poverty. And so the GPE is now starting to provide a little bit of framework now that will help us address all these things in a holistic manner. So I'll share this with you, and I'll share also a list of reference material that you can look at.